Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us for this webinar today on our Pulsit product. My name is Bill Baker. I'm a senior engineer with Embrace. So to introduce our company, for those of you that don't know us, our mission is to solve operational workflow pains for organizations by implementing automation and collaboration platforms that make sense. So what do we really mean by that? Well, our expertise is in user-driven workflows, user-centric design. All our products have started life from a user case and a user interface story rather than back-end automation or APIs. And all the products that we create, we focus on that principle. So we essentially produce software that automates systems and connects people. That's what we try to do. Our software is used by major brands all around the world. In fact, 90%, we are a French company, but 90% of our customers are outside of France. We work with large customers across all sorts of sectors, people you'd be familiar with like A&E and major broadcasters like Orange, through to service providers like Red Bee and sports organizations like Eurosports. We're really proud of working closely with our customers, and we collaborate very closely with many of them during our product development and understand what's at stake for them and what advanced, modern and intuitive automation and collaboration means to them. We also work with several strategic partners, major names, and we work with many of their major customers as well to provide solutions around their products. So we work with organizations such as Adobe and Avid, as well as AWS, Woody and Cantamo. So just to introduce our product line, obviously we're here today to focus on Pulsit, our orchestration platform, but to introduce our other products. So we have Automate. Again, some of you on this call are using. Automate is our promo versioning platform. So it's available as an on-premise deployment or in cloud and hybrid mode. And it allows broadcasters and media services companies to generate large volumes of customized videos automatically. We also have Share It, which is our collaboration platform that connects Adobe video and graphics tools into media asset management systems such as Avid Media Central Production Management and Cantamo Portal. And lastly, what we're here to focus on today is Pulsit, which is our workflow orchestration platform. So Pulsit is, as I say, our next generation open workflow design and orchestration platform. So it enables users across an organization to manage, schedule, and automate complex workflows and model their business processes within one simple platform. So as with any orchestration platform, it can be a big question about how you benefit and how you best leverage the tools. Our platform has many tools that can be applied in many different scenarios. It's not possible for me to iterate over every single scenario on today's webinar, but I'm going to paint a few pictures for you about who might benefit and what sort of problems we are looking to solve. So I'm going to portray two fictional scenarios in this case, but they often model very closely some of our existing customer pains and the problem set that we have set out to solve. So the first of our example use cases, our fictitious use cases, is the national big broadcaster, I've called them. So they are from an unnamed country. They, as with any broadcaster, have a huge legacy of aging systems, but equally key systems as part of their infrastructure, and they need to protect and prolong their investment in that. So they need a system that can glue those together and bring the modern automation they require without forcing them to upgrade their entire infrastructure. They need, of course, to keep delivering to their existing outputs and pipes, but they also need to modernize and to deliver to platforms such as social media, for example. And you'll see a bunch of our out-the-box workflows that help you service those endpoints. And they also need to ensure compliance. So they have strict compliance regimes from their unnamed oppressive government. They need to be sure that they can review media before it goes out simply and easily. And they also need to have audit and proof that they have done that. We've also got the, again, fictitious global advertising distribution agency. So like many media organizations, they need to do more with less. They need to decrease their spend. Their customers are decreasing their spend, on advertising. So budgets are being squeezed. So they're getting less money. So they need to do more with less. Equally, they need to serve an explosion in end user platforms. They need to service more markets, more different markets, some markets which are requiring all sorts of different aspect ratios and layouts of video, all with the same or less resources. And they need to meet their customer SLAs. They need to be able to scale, and they need to be able to prove to their customers that they've done it. So again, audit and proof, clear, visible workflow history is important. So how does Pulsit solve that? Well, first of all, what is Pulsit? So as we've discussed, it's a workflow orchestration platform, but what does that mean in more detail? What's the philosophy of the platform? Well, like I've alluded to already, we're experts in what we would call user-first design, but user-centric design. All of our products have started life as a user interface in some degree, and we have built outwards from that. So rather than doing the opposite, starting with just software or just APIs and building out user scenarios where they're required, all our stories have started with the user. And we have extended that with automation and integration. So we have a number of best of breed frameworks to integrate with any API, so you can quickly scale and integrate the system and use it to glue together different silos. How do we glue things together in a logical way? We have a powerful workflow designer, which is available in an HTML5 interface. So there's no software to install, no native clients. This can be rolled out across the facility and managed quickly and easily. As I say, it's all about the users with Pulsit, but it can function as a black box system behind the scenes where no one sees it as well. It's perfectly happy quietly doing automation in the background, as well as being the focal piece of a user's working workflow. So we use the APIs that we publish ourselves. They're available to you to build your applications on top of as well. Let's look at some of the technical workflow tools in a bit more detail. So first of all, we have our workflow designer. This is at the heart of what we do. You can see here that we have a simple nodal designer that you can drag and drop tasks into and connect them up easily. There are different courses based on errors, successes, and progress statuses. And it's really easy to quickly get a visual representation of what your technical process is. So it really enables authorized users to define tools and automate routings. And again, there's a permissions framework around this as well. So you can be sure that only the right people are modifying the things that they should. And so ultimately it allows technical and non-technical users to be able to manage workflows, combining both human automation and their preferred technical tools. We have 60 plus tasks included out of the box that you can drop in where it makes sense, avoiding the rip and replace disruption, that you'd be used to with other systems. So there are tools to manipulate cloud storage, for example, working with S3 buckets and other forms of object and cloud storage. Getting data into any user system is important to present them perhaps with news stories or TV listings or broadcast schedules. We have an API, of course, but also it can be imported from more standard formats like CSV and JSON, and these can all be displayed in our forms, as you'll see later. The system is also very extensible. So should there not be a task out of the box that you require, it's very easy either to use our scripting framework, which is based on Python, to write your own modules to communicate with the systems that you need, or to use our web APIs. And we also have tasks to communicate with REST APIs and SOAP APIs out the box. So very quickly and easily you can spin up integration with new systems. Now, managing and building workflows is all very well, but you need to be aware of the environment that they are operating in. Pulseit features centralized logging. Now, it's a distributed system, which means that processing could be happening across any number of computers, any number of nodes within a network. So being able to see the results in one place is very important. We provide all of the management structures that you would expect and require to run automation at scale. Centralized logging, error handling. So if something doesn't go quite as you'd expect, you can invoke callbacks and messages or remedial action automatically. As I say, it has distributed processing, so it can be scaled to meet demand across any number of nodes. And we provide alerting and monitoring, as I've alluded to, and you can hook into any message within the system. Again, as I mentioned right at the start, it's important to have audit and visibility of your workflows to ensure compliance. Our interface also features several admin views that allow detailed workflow supervision. And here you can monitor both overall system health and the job status of every single workflow in real time, as you can see there. The status information is available both through the UI and the API and can be easily queried. And this audit trail is of course kept, so you can go back and look at it at any point. Lastly, talking a bit about the architecture, as I've said, it's important in automation to be able to scale as you require more of it. The system is fully horizontally scalable. So what do I mean by that? Well, you can seamlessly add more worker nodes onto the platform without disrupting the on-progress work. As you can see here, they can be turned on and off at any point, and you can add as many as you need to meet your load and meet your demand. The software, just to tell you a bit about the architecture, is based on a Linux server, which hosts things like the database and the user interface over a web server, and then Windows worker nodes, which are deployed as headless nodes, so they don't have a user interface. And this is to do the actual execution and processing of the job. And it also deployed on Windows so that they can integrate with tools like the Adobe Graphics Suite. All our software is what we would call a good IT citizen. So that means it can be deployed using best of breed modern methodologies like Ansible and Terraform. I'll show you a demo later in our AWS cloud environment, which has all been deployed automatically using these technologies. And it has full access control as well, so comprehensive user rights, granular permissions for all the tasks and objects in the system, and also integration into centralized authentication systems like Active Directory. Now, I've talked a lot about automation already and building workflows, but as I've said, we're all about the users with Pulsit, and forms are at the heart of that. So we feature a drag and drop designer. So there are both standard field types, things like text and numbers and lists, but there's also specific media types. So here in our sped up demo, you can see a media selector, for example, which you'll see in the demo a bit later. If you look on the right, you can see that we also include styling out the box. You can, using what we call a what you see is what you get editor, you can apply your own corporate branding, you can apply your own styling, color schemes, and position things as you want, all without writing a single line of code. And these can be integrated into our sequences. A sequence is a functional cornerstone of the system. So a sequence you can think of as connecting workflows and user tasks. So again, in a nodal designer, I can associate the user forms that I've built. So in this screen grab below, I have 2 user forms and automated workflows. So I also have 2 automated workflows here. We can really think of sequences as describing an entire business process, and tasks, when they are created, can be assigned either automatically or based on a user decision to any user or group of users or everyone as a whole. With sequences, we've got a mix of automated tasks and user tasks, as I say. And keeping track of who's doing what and when is super important in that scenario. So Pulsit makes project management really easy and removes the collaboration across teams and departments when you're working in this way. As you can see, again, we've got real-time feedback, and it allows all your authorized users to allocate tasks, resources, and deadlines, and view the status of work and ensure that your deadlines are being met. Scheduling can be performed as well in a very simple way, and we feature a number of different views, whether it's calendar views or tasks lists that show the status of all of your work across your department and organization as a whole. Now, this is a bit more of a technical view that we've got here on the right that you might expect an administrator to use, but we also have a simplified view that your day-to-day user would view to look at the status of their jobs. Features for things like thumbnail scrubbing as well, so they can quickly and easily, at a glance, view the status of their work and what tasks they have assigned for the day. So I'm just going to jump into a quick demonstration now, which shows some of these concepts glued together in action. So I'm now logging into our demo environment, which is hosted in AWS. And the first thing that I've got here is a sequence. So in this particular demonstration, I'm going to show you how an organization, in this scenario, a news organization, but this scenario could apply to many different types of organizations. And I'm going to show you how it can be used to manage the acquisition and processing and review of remote news contributions. And we'll look at how the user tasks and the automated tasks are connected. First of all, I'm going to start my sequence. I'm going to create an instance of it. Now, what I've got here, I've started using the arrow button, but this, of course, the play button, sorry, but this could, of course, be started automatically by processes or timers or APIs. I'm going to give my sequence a title. So let's call it review footage for tonight. So that my user knows what it is. I'm going to assign it a priority. It's for tonight's news, so it's very important. Let's give it a deadline as well, just for fun. Put tomorrow here, and let's give a user message. Please be thorough, so that the user knows what they are doing. Let's go and start that sequence now. Now I'm going to go over to my user jobs. So these are the jobs that have been assigned to me, the admin user in my case. So you can see here all of the jobs that I've got in my backlog. So I've got a job to review tonight's promos, cleanups and media storage. That's not so important. Process the daily imports, which is a BAU task. And the task I just created, review footage for tonight. So let's go and look at that in a bit more detail. So I'm going to open up the form. And again, this is built using our drag and drop designer. So built using no coding, no HTML, nothing like that. So in this particular demonstration, I'm going to put in the topic that my news story is about. Let's put Euro 2020, the Euro 2020 football tournament. And I'm going to use the media selector to browse file to import. Now, this could browse local storage, but here it's browsing an S3 bucket with media that's been automatically uploaded from a camera. So I actually took this in the supermarket this weekend. So you can imagine remote contributions being fed into this bucket, and back at base, I'm importing them. Let's go and select that media. And again, I've got, I could view my task here that I wrote earlier, please be thorough. So I'm going to check that twice. And now I'm going to accept, which will cause my sequence to continue. Let's go and look at that in the admin view. If I scroll down, you can see that I have my review footage for tonight here, and it's now in the process of running an automated workflow. So at the moment, it's running the import media workflow, and it's, as it happens, processing a proxy. Let's go and look at that workflow in a bit more detail and review what it is doing. So in this workflow, I have 4 different tasks. So the first of all is I'm calling a news API using our REST API messaging action. So this is to demonstrate that Pulseit can integrate quickly and easily with any API. But in this scenario, based on the title that I presented it with, which is Euro 2020, it's going to call out to an API and retrieve the synopsis of the story and populate my form later on. So you'll see that in a second. Afterwards, it's going to download the media from S3 for local processing. And then it's going to register the media within the system and create a proxy using some distributed encoding so that it can be reviewed later on. Again, with any of our workflows, you get a full audit history. So I can see here that my most recent import has finished. Let's go and see if I have another task available now. So I'm going to go back to my user jobs, and funnily enough, I still have my sequence review footage for tonight here, but now I have moved to the review media stage. Now, of course, this could be launching different workflows, different sequences. This could be assigned to a different user. Perhaps it would be assigned to my supervisor in this scenario. But let's go and look here and see my task. So here we have the video, which is some portrait phone footage that I can review and skip backwards and forwards and move around at a frame level. I also have the story description here. So as I mentioned earlier, that's based on the information that I put in that has been retrieved from an API. In this case, it's a generic news source for the purpose of demonstration, but this of course could be your internal system, some other cloud service that you pay a subscription to. So it's very easy, based on minimal input, to quickly enrich the metadata of your assets with no effort. I have some options down here as well. So again, these are completely custom built in the form. And these particular ones will affect the logic of the onward workflow, and they're designed to decide where do I want to send the media to. So perhaps in my scenario, I don't want to send the media to Twitter or YouTube, but I would like to store it in the cloud storage and email a link. So that could be, send a link so that could be downloaded. And I would also like to send that to broadcast playout. Let's accept that and finish. And my workflow is now going to continue on. Let's look at the last workflow now. Let's go and look into the distribute news story. So what's this particular workflow doing? So in this scenario, it's using our if or not actions to evaluate the input of the user. Did I choose to send it to broadcast? Did I choose to send it to cloud storage? It's then sending it to the playout server, in this case via FTP, and uploading to an S3 bucket. Now, notification and alerting is an important part of any automation system. We have a number of messaging actions built into the system. In this case, I am notifying via Slack. So I won't open my Slack now, but if you looked in our Slack, you would see a notification complete with a download link and a description of the news story. You could, of course, do more traditional forms of messaging like email or even pop a message somewhere else into the system. We can see here that our last execution has just completed a minute ago, and that we've completed 2 transfers, sending to S3 and to our playout server. So that concludes the demonstration. Again, this is one simple use case that could, of course, be expanded much, much further. But I think you'll agree that it certainly demonstrates the power of the platform. As I said, I can't demonstrate all of the possible use cases for our workflow orchestration platform in a 30-minute webinar, but I do just want to talk about another scenario. And this is where PulseFit is functioning as a behind-the-scenes orchestration system for a MAM, in this case, Cantamo Portal. Here, we can see that the user is presented with simple forms. So here they simply have a send assets to button that they can launch against any asset that they find in the system. That will trigger a PulseFit workflow automatically that, in this instance, retrieves metadata from another source and sets it against the asset. But again, that could distribute media to an endpoint, as we've been doing, or provide more complex logic than that. The key thing is the user's not exporting media, they're not dragging and dropping it into a hot folder in the right place in order to trigger that automation. It's the seamless user experience. And this is an example of how PulseFit can integrate very well using its own open APIs with other systems, which include open APIs. And we have many customers around the world using PulseFit in exactly this way to provide additional automation around their MAM user interfaces or other user interfaces. Thanks for sticking with us and seeing PulseFit and hearing what we have to say about the platform. There have been a number of questions that we've answered during the course of the webinar, which I'll just take a minute to recap and elaborate on. Do please ask questions as well via the Q&A section, or feel free to drop off if you don't have a question. But I'll just recap some of the questions that have been asked now. So Mark asked a great question, which is how scalable is the platform? So as we mentioned, it's infinitely scalable. Any node can be added on without interrupting the other nodes. And when a workflow is executed, it simply gets sent to a node. That node executes it in isolation and it completes. So we're not dependent on any shared resource between them. And a workflow, any node can be put into maintenance mode as well, to bring it out of the pool, and then it will not be allocated any more workflows. So it's easy to just add on additional nodes alongside that. Mark again asked if PulseIt was compatible with other S3 storages, such as Wasabi. Yep, PulseIt is fully compliant with the S3 protocol, so you can use any storage that supports the S3 protocol, be that something like Wasabi, an on-premise storage like Object Matrix's storage, which again features an S3 compliant interface. There was another question about if with an email notification it was possible to follow onto a task. So yes, so PulseIt allows users to hand tasks off to other systems and pause a workflow and then continue when they get a response from another system. So that may be, for example, listening for a response on a yes/no button in a Slack channel. That may be waiting for an email to arrive in a particular way, or for a user in a MAM to do something, for example. You can hook into a number of events. Someone asked if there is an exhaustive list of all pre-built tools within the system. So we of course have our list of tasks down the side, which is a list of pre-packaged tasks, but you'll find that most of the tasks in there are focused on providing frameworks that allow you to very quickly and easily integrate with other systems. So for example, our REST API connector features all of the forms and fields you'll need to communicate with any REST API, and it's the same for our SOAP messaging system. And we keep a repository of examples we can provide to connect with all the leading workflow systems, such as Telestream, Vantage, and other popular transcoders and QC systems. But of course, we love to work collaboratively with our customers. So if you had further requirements or further devices you'd like to discuss or integrations, we'd be happy to discuss those with you. Is it possible to allow a specific workflow for a user? For example, I have 4 sub-workflows and I want to attribute modification access to one specific user for every sub-workflow. Yes, absolutely. We have a roles approach and user and group level ACL, so that's access control lists. There's of course logic on top of that. So dynamically, as a scenario, maybe in a sequence or in a form, a user is presented with a drop-down list. I want to pass the media, I want to fail the media, or I want to escalate the media to my supervisor. In that scenario, the workflow would dynamically decide based on the user input who to assign the task to next. And that could be any user within the system, or it could do things like query LDAP groups to decide who to send that to next. There's really no limit there.
Bill, this is Julian. Hi.
Hi.
There were a few questions around integration because, as you know, historically, workflow orchestration platforms usually offered specific connectors for any processing tools and broadcast. And since we gave with Pulsit a completely different approach by developing connectors that already had all the code embedded to enable any customer to connect to any system, to go to market quickly and reduce cost and limit the dependency on us. There were a few questions around Vantage integration or any other systems like that. And we have Brian, if you look at the last question, Brian from New York, who actually is a happy user, apparently, of Pulsit, did the Vantage and the Spare integration on his own very easily and very quickly. And I think that if I saw that Fred also shared our online public resources or knowledge base page that also provides a lot of information on how these connectors are pre-built with multi-threading, error management, logging, versioning management as well of integrations. And all you need to do on your side, if you're a user and customer of Pulsit, is really to enter the parameters into your infrastructure, and you're usually, most of the case, up and running. And this is also something you've touched on during the presentation, but there were a few questions that raised on that topic.
Thank you. Yeah, that's a great point, and great to hear that we've got customers who've successfully done their own integrations. Yeah, the last thing that we want to be is a big vendor that you depend on to make any changes, to change a button from blue to pink. We want to work with you collaboratively and allow you to make your own changes. So. And liberate you to integrate new products as you need, as Julian says, without depending on us. So yeah, it's great to hear that customers have been doing that with success. Cool. Are there any other questions to cover? Julian, anything you would like to say before we wrap the webinar up?
I think it's I think we've covered it pretty much in half an hour, like expected. Of course, like you said in introduction, we have many different use cases or many different pains that we helped solve with our customers. And of course, I invite everyone who joined today that if they want to share maybe on some of the stakes that they're facing, or if they want to further discuss, to feel free to contact anyone on the organization, and we'll be extremely happy, of course, to provide any assistance or questions or follow up with a specific workshop with them on their existing, solutions and processes. And so, no, I'd just like to thank everyone for joining. We had this night session for us in Paris to allow people from the US to join as well, and I've seen that there've been quite a few, which is extremely nice, and I really appreciate that everyone took the time to learn more about Pulsit. Thank you very much. I think there's one more question that came up. Oh, it's Ludwig just saying that, so that's so if you can, Ludwig, and everyone, you can write to us directly at contact@embrace.fr, or you can go on you'll find on the web, we have a Fresh Desk page, so you type Fresh Desk Embrace and you'll find it very easily. And this is also our ticketing platform that we use for users that are in operation. So should be easy for you to continue the conversation.
Well, thank you very much for joining, everyone. I'd like to echo Julian's thanks, and sorry, go on.
Sure. Yeah, I'm just going to say, Bill, maybe leave it open for another 5 minutes if there are a few questions still.
Okay. Yes.
So we can take them, but we'll close it by 6:45 our time. Thank you very much, Bill.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks.